Hey everybody, welcome to week 12. I have a lot here to cover, so let me share our, not Blackboard, we're on Canvas now, share our Canvas screen. So I have two readings that I've chosen for you. I initially was going to have one from Writing About Writing and another from Writing Spaces. But as I read Brannick's piece myself, I figured it would make sense to have the Mirabelli reading accompanying that, since he refers to it so much in his essay. So in chapter 7, you're going to read Brannick. Coaches can read too. And this is actually an example of a student discourse community paper, which was written for one of the co-writers, Dr. Elizabeth Wardle, who at the time was at the University of Dayton. She is now actually at Miami University of Ohio. I had no idea that she was actually so local to us. So that's kind of cool. And the Mirabelli piece is actually very accessible as well. It's called Learning to Serve, the Language and Literacy of Food Service Workers. And he has a very interesting perspective, and it's kind of an autoethnography that addresses the various skills, the various, what did he call it, multi-literacies that food service workers have. So those who serve in restaurants and deal with the public have a variety of literacies that they rely upon to get the job done. So Mirabelli, it's a little bit longer of a read, but I do encourage you to read it. You might want to read it before you read Brannick. It's really up to you, but definitely read Brannick. Mirabelli is very interesting. It's a little bit longer, so if you're pressed for time, you might want to skip over it. But if you are choosing a community of restaurant workers or food service workers or something similar to that, you might want to read Mirabelli as some background information for your papers. All right, so this week the to-do list is to watch this overview. I don't have an extra lecture, but I will be explaining the assignments. Read those selections, then begin collecting your data. So if you choose to do interviews of people within your discourse community, you want to get cracking on that. You cannot drag your feet. Make your observations, take some notes. You know, if it's a group that you participate in, say you're a member of an orchestra and you choose to write about an orchestra as a discourse community, make sure that you are taking notes. You know, if you're in a practice and you're making some mental observations, make sure that you jot your notes down so that you don't forget these things. And then, of course, remember to try to collect some different genres that these groups use. And so, yeah, that data collecting is going to be important. And then we have a discussion board post. Your initial post is due Sunday the 3rd, and then you have your peer response follow-up posts on Thursday the 7th. And lastly, we have a research proposal that will be due on Sunday the 3rd, and I will talk about that in a minute. So let's go through. I have a little page here on gathering data and conducting interviews, and this is pretty much taken from the text. They do, at the end of chapter 7, have these various writing assignments or writing projects that students can do. So this is taken from the text and just gives you some pointers as far as gathering your primary data. Observe members of the discourse community while they are engaged in the shared activity. Take detailed field notes. What are they doing? What kinds of things do they say? What do they write? How do you know who is in and who is out of the group? And it's always a good idea to, if you're not a part of that community, you ask permission to observe those people. That's just kind of an ethical thing, right? Collect anything members of the community read or write. Of course, again, ask for the permission. Anything is the key word. So things like brochures, newsletters, reports, or even short things like forms or notes, text messages, be sure to ask permission. if these genres are private to that community, okay? And then this is optional. Some of you may not have time, or you may not have I don't want to say capacity, but some of us are not comfortable interviewing other people unless it's a very close friend or something like that. You can do that. But if you have time, and if you think this will help you with your paper and to understand the community more, interview at least one other member of that community. You can do this face-to-face if you're comfortable with that, or through some digital mode. You can use email, text, IM, video, that kind of thing. Again, you should take very detailed notes. You don't want to accidentally misquote or misrepresent. And if you can, I encourage you to record your interview and then transcribe the recording. Of course, it is very important that the person that you're interviewing agrees to be recorded and understands that this is for research purposes, that kind of thing. I am not going to have you have your interviewees sign release forms, but just at least get verbal permission. You don't have to get written permission, but definitely get verbal permission. So in your interview, you might ask questions like, how long have you been here? Meaning, how long have you been a part of the discourse community? Why are you involved? What do X, Y, and Z words mean? How did you learn to write the various genres? How do you communicate with other people on your team or your restaurant, that kind of thing. And you may decide to ask other questions. Just make sure that you write those down, you keep track of them, and please make note of any additional questions and add those to your transcript. And make sure that you explain the purpose of your interview, describe the research project clearly, noting that it is for research purposes. It's not going to be published. You're writing it for a class. And make sure that you have a backup plan, because sometimes interviewees are like, after they think about it a bit, they're like, I'm not comfortable with being interviewed. So that's why I'm making that optional. It may be difficult to secure an interview with somebody, or it may be difficult to get somebody to agree to be interviewed. It really depends on your chosen discourse community and the people within it. So remember, your notes and your transcripts are going to be a part of your final essay, and those will be formatted as an appendix or appendices. So the list of interview questions that you ask, any notes that you have from your field notes and your observation, those will be appendices. And I think there's an example of an appendix at the end of that Brannick article, if I'm not mistaken, just so you see how that's done. So the next page here is our discussion board. And this is just from the questions for discussion and journaling at the end of Brannick's piece in chapter 7. His methods include analyzing the coach's discourse community using Swales' 6 characteristics of a discourse community. And I want you to think about how effectively does he conduct that analysis, and what, if anything, would you change or expand, and why? So respond to those questions by Sunday, April 3rd, and then get your peer responses to peers by Thursday, April 7th. The assignment is worth 10 points. You'll receive 6 points for sufficiently answering those 2 questions above, and 4 points for your responses to peers. I think that's pretty straightforward. And then the last thing we have here is the next step in this research paper. And this is a formal research proposal. So after you have chosen your discourse community, you've journaled about it, and you started conducting some preliminary research, you're going to formulate those ideas in the form of a research proposal. So for this kind of proposal, your readers assume that through the preliminary research you've been conducting, you have developed a position on your discourse community that you wish to explore further, and that will, in this case, result in an extended essay. So the proposal should include a working title. It should have some kind of introduction which discusses your chosen community. It does not have to be the introduction that you use in your paper, but at least introduce me to your chosen discourse community. Should have a working thesis that's supported by reasons for your position. How you go about doing that is really up to you. You'll have a discussion section where you identify the context in which the question is situated. So to what conversation are you adding your voice? What have others said about this topic or this question? And then draw on the research and reading you've done so far and think about what kind of information will be important for an outsider, someone who is not familiar with this discourse community. What would be those important things that they should know about it, right? And I want you to think about that as your niche, as well as how your community fulfills Swales' criteria with examples if possible. Then a methodology section where you outline the trajectory of your paper. How are you going to organize your paper? What path will it follow? What other research do you need to accomplish in order to finish the paper? Are you going to use fieldwork, interviews, surveys? Are you going to be in chat rooms, gaming discussions? Whatever's applicable to your community. And this is also the section where you might troubleshoot the research project or, you know, weigh the benefits and drawbacks of certain types of sources. You know, are there resources available? Is this some kind of bias? That kind of thing. You want to make sure that your reader understands how that methodology and how those sources you have chosen are appropriate for your specific goals. You're gonna, towards the end, have a biographical note, which is about yourself. It explains your interest, your background, and your expertise with regard to the topic. And then a preliminary bibliography of at least 2 sources. So I want you to cite Swales, that's one. And one other reading from the class that you think is appropriate for or you think you might be using. So it could be, you could look at the list of readings that I have proposed for the rest of the unit and you say, oh, you know, this one is about a gaming community, or this one's about sports or what have you, or this one's about nursing. Draw from those if it applies to your research. And, you know, it just might be some background information, such as, you know, Mirabelli might provide some context for you, or the Elizabeth Wardle article might provide a little bit of background stuff for you to draw from. So at least 2 sources, and it doesn't have to be, one has to be Swales. If you find articles from elsewhere outside of our readings that we've been doing, good for you. That's fantastic. Just make sure it's properly documented according to your preferred formatting style. The proposal should be written in first person, and you can use bolded section headings throughout. So you can say working title, introduction, discussion, methodology, biographical note, and then bibliography. The length should be aimed for about 2 to 3 double-spaced pages, 12-inch font, 12-inch, no, 12-point. I will fix that. And then it's worth 50 points, which is 1/3 of the overall discourse community project grade. So it's really important that you take a serious approach to this research proposal. And this will just be a way of you really getting into the right frame of mind for this research paper. Remember, the research paper is going to be 8 to 10 pages, not including your bibliography. And this is due Sunday, April 3rd. Again, if you need extra time, please reach out to me and I will try to be as flexible as possible. And then the next thing here, it's not connecting for me. Of course, that figures. Well, let's take it out. So this website, how to cite an interview in APA, MLA, and Chicago style. I just wanted to have this resource for you available so you know how to cite an interview. I do expect if you do an interview that the person that you interview is cited in your bibliography. You'll notice if you take a look at the Brannick article, he refers to the coaches with parenthetical citations, but he fails to have that in his works cited. And I think it's kind of cool that the editors of the text actually chose to have it as is and not fix things and put in those citations for the interviews. I am going to assume that Dr. Wardle probably pointed out that he needs to do that. If he's citing somebody in a paper, he needs to have that in his works cited. But that was something that I observed while reading the Brannick article. So yeah, cite and interview, we have APA, MLA, so the various formatting with examples and how an in-text citation would look. And then down at the bottom is Chicago style, if you do a bibliography entry and footnotes. So yeah, hopefully that is helpful. So if for some reason the page comes up like this for you, you can go up here and go to the external site, and that'll take you outside of Canvas, but you'll be able to access the information that way. So that's just a resource for you. So yeah, that's week 12 in a nutshell. Again, if you have any questions for me, please don't hesitate to reach out via email. My scheduled office hours are Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 2. I do those on Zoom, but if you have trouble getting it to those times, and I don't think many students have tried to get to an office hour with me during those times. I can schedule other times. I can be available in the evening, and if I have to, I can even do a weekend time slot, usually about 30 minutes. So I just need advance notice because we are getting into baseball season. So I'm a little bit more busy with my my youngest son going to games and that kind of thing. But you know, as long as I have advance notice, I should be able to set some time aside so that you have my full attention. Again, late assignments, even if there are zeros in the book, that does not mean you can't submit. You can still submit late work. I will take a look at it. I may not provide you with extensive feedback, but I will at least take a look at it. And anything is better than getting a 0 for an assignment, right? Even those small assignments that are worth 10 points, you know, 5 or 10 points. It's really good to try to at least do some of them. I know the discussion board ones can be kind of tricky because you're not responding to anybody, but still get those assignments in, and I will change the grade for you so that you don't have a big fat 0 sitting for a missing assignment. Okay? Take care, everybody. Have a fantastic week. Bye-bye.